This is a video from Mr. Estep. Well, a black man can bleed like a soldier. A black man can die like a soldier. And the 54th proved to the white men in charge that a black man can fight like a soldier. Explain this quote in your own words. Use all appropriate names, dates, and places of importance. And why those items are important to your answer. Well, this was with the fight, I think, in Philadelphia, where, the 54th Regiment, which was the volunteer black regiment in the Civil War, led by Colonel Shaw. This is after they won their first battle. This is a quote from the movie Glory. And, yeah. What is the date of Constitution Day? Why is this date significant? What interpretation holds principles of the Constitution are acceptable in changing circumstances? September 17th. Constitution Day is on September 17th because that's the last time the Constitution Office met. And George Bush Sr. made this the day. Both houses of Congress must propose the amendment, and it must win by a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress. 2/3 of states' legislature must call onto Congress in order to gather a constitutional convention. Explain why we study religious, literary, and political texts from the past. Answer this question. If you don't learn from the past, you can't be prepared for the future. Amendments are there in the Bill of Rights? Why do we need amendments? And what does it take to get an amendment passed? Explain in detail. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. Why do we have it? Well, as things go on, times change, opinions change, and why can't the Constitution move on with that? So, in order for the Constitution to move on, they have to amend it. And in order to get amended, like I said in the past video, you need to get 2/3 of Congress to, vote for you. 2/3 of states' legislature must call onto Congress in order to gather a constitutional convention. Why was the Civil War such a seminal moment in American history? Describe in detail. You see, around this time, the states were more like countries. They were unionized, but they weren't exactly their own, they were still their own countries. They still had their own laws. They were still, themselves. They weren't the United States of America. And, President Lincoln wanted to unite the North and the South, and, well, not just the North and the South, but they wanted to unite all the states together to make the United States of America. And the South didn't like that, so they wanted to fight for state rights. And, in order for America to fight against them, they also not America, but the Union, to fight against the South, they threw in slavery, which brought this into an even bigger war. And that is how the Civil War is just so big, such a huge part of American history. It has the most deaths than any other war in American history. Contrast the cultures of Native Americans and the white settlers and explain why the white settlers moved west. Well, the white settlers were looking for freedom because a lot of them were Jewish or some kind of other religion besides Protestant. And since they were coming from England, England wasn't a very, friendly place to Jewish people or Catholic. And they wanted to move to America, and there was just several other reasons. Like there was poor people who wanted to start anew, start fresh, go to America. And then there was, and to contrast the Native Americans and white settlers is that the white settlers had guns, and they also had lots of power and diseases, which wiped out a lot of Native Americans and made their numbers small. The white men also had, just a relentless amount of unlimited forces that could just come overseas, and they know how to industrialize. So, yeah, the Native Americans were out technologicalized. You want to put, that's not really a word, but if you understand what I'm saying. Identify at least 3 inventions during the industrial age that changed the way people lived and worked. Compare life then to what your life is like now. The sewing machine, the steamboat, and the telegraph. Native American white settlers, as the white settlers were rich, they were used to, they have guns. That's the first thing. Native Americans don't have guns, and they do, and that's a very powerful weapon. And also, they had power, they had money, and they, knew how to buy land and stuff. And eventually just bought them out and tricked the Native Americans.